Don't fight against math. You'll lose nearly every time. Have you ever picked a fight with math? Maybe not with the calculator in your hand, but with the dream in your heart, one that didn't make sense on paper? You hoped the numbers would somehow bend to your passion. You believed faith would override math. You thought, if I just work hard enough, pray long enough, God will make it work for me. But here's the truth, friend. God can do miracles, but He doesn't usually reward foolish math. In the long run, you will always lose when you fight against math. And that's not a lack of faith. That's faith aligned with wisdom. Because numbers, just like gravity, sowing and reaping, or the laws of physics, are just part of how God designed the universe. And today, I want to show you why fighting against math isn't just bad business, it's bad stewardship. You may have never thought of math as spiritual, but in a way it is. When God created the world, He didn't just make beauty, He made order. From the Fibonacci sequence in flowers, to the orbits of planets, to the precision of your DNA, God thinks mathematically, and He designed the world that way. Proverbs 3:19 says, "By wisdom the Lord laid the earth's foundations. By understanding He set the heavens in place." Math is not man-made, it's God-made. We as people have merely discovered it. When you understand that, you stop treating math as your enemy and start seeing it as one of God's tools to help you make better decisions. So let's walk through some areas where Christians, leaders, pastors, business owners, parents, entrepreneurs, are tempted to fight against math, and how to start aligning your faith with the numbers, not against the numbers. Let's start with something simple: gambling. Now, I've never gambled, not because I'm afraid of cards or dice, but because the math is rigged against you. Casinos are not built by losers. They're built by people who understand probability. Every slot machine, every roulette wheel, every deck of cards is designed to tilt the odds slightly in the house's favor. It's not emotional, it's just math. And that's why Proverbs 28:19 says, "Those who work their land will have abundant food, but those who chase fantasies will have their fill of poverty." Gambling, in many ways, is just modern fantasy chasing. It's the illusion that you can win long-term against the math. And life doesn't work that way. Now compare that with investing in the stock market. Because some people say, well, I don't invest in stocks, that's just gambling. But when you invest in the stock market, you're not betting on chance. You're buying ownership in real companies that create value. Over 100 years of data show that the U.S. stock market returns on average about 10% annually if you reinvest dividends. There are ups and downs, but over time, the math is on your side. So why do people still gamble with their money instead of invest? Well, emotion always wants to fight logic, right? Desire wants to fight discipline. But wise leaders and wise believers don't fight against math. They let math shape their decisions. Let's talk about entrepreneurship. I love small business owners. I've started several businesses myself. But some dreams come preloaded with bad math. Take restaurants, for example. Studies show that roughly 60% of restaurants fail within their first year, and nearly 80% of restaurants fail within 5 years. Now, if God clearly calls you to start one, obey Him. But don't pretend that faith cancels out arithmetic. When I was about to buy a restaurant, my attorney cautioned me. He's a believer, he's a good friend. And one of the things he told me is, I know some people who've made millions in the restaurant industry. He paused and then he smiled and he said, they started with billions. They were billionaires and then got in the restaurant business and became millionaires. It was a somewhat humorous way of telling me that most people lose money on restaurants. I bought the restaurant for a great price. They'd come down several $100,000 on their asking price. I had a great manager. But it was so hard to get quality employees that after a few years, I sold the restaurant for about what I had in it. I basically was happy to walk away, break even, having learned a tough lesson. Now, I know some people do well in the restaurant business, but in many ways, you're fighting against the math from the first day. So for me personally, I don't think the restaurant business is for me. I've done much better in my other businesses. Luke 14:28 says, "Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it?" That's Jesus talking. He's saying, do the math. Faith isn't ignoring numbers, it's stewarding them wisely. When I meet young entrepreneurs who say, I want to start a restaurant, I like to ask them why. If it's just because you like to cook, open a catering business or a food truck, something with lower risk, better margins, better math. Because every business, every ministry, every career decision must bow to this principle: don't fight against the math. If the probability of success is low and the capital requirements are high and the competition is brutal, you're walking uphill against the design of God's universe. Now, the flip side is this, because this sounds really bad so far, right? But here's the good part. There are careers, there are callings, and there are investments where the math is for you. It's on your side. Let's say there's a consistent shortage of nurses, electricians, engineers, and plumbers. And at the time I'm recording this, I think that for the most part is the case. That means the demand is strong and the supply is weak. The math is on your side. I mean, Ecclesiastes 11:2 says, invest in 7 ventures, yes, in 8. You do not know what disaster may come upon the land. In other words, diversify. Choose ventures where the probabilities favor faithfulness. If everyone is leaving a certain industry, but demand remains there, that's where opportunity lives. God doesn't bless laziness, but he loves stewardship. I remember a good friend of mine in the Midwest who's bought up many of the porta potty businesses there, and he was telling me the numbers. It's pretty remarkable. And you think, wow, I've never thought about that before, that people can make a lot of money off of portable bathrooms, right? When Joseph managed Egypt's grain storage, you read about this in Genesis 41, he wasn't doing miracles, he was doing math. 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine, store 1/5 each year, simple ratios, brilliant stewardship, mathematical obedience. That plan saved an entire nation and positioned God's people for blessing. Let's go deeper. When Jesus told the parable of the talents in Matthew 25, the faithful servants doubled their investments. That's math. They didn't pray for multiplication, they worked for it. They used what they had wisely. And notice what Jesus said to the one who buried his talent. The master called him a wicked and lazy servant. Why? Well, you could say in some ways he fought against the math. He refused to let stewardship do its slow, steady work. That's the same principle behind compounding. Albert Einstein, who obviously wasn't a pastor, once called compound interest the 8th wonder of the world. But God invented it long before Wall Street did. It's the math of faithfulness. Little by little, over time, build something pretty incredible. Proverbs 13:11 says, dishonest money dwindles away, but whoever gathers money little by little makes it grow. That's compounding. That's kingdom math. And here's the application for you. You might not see the fruit of your ministry, your marriage, or your business right away, but if you keep sowing, keep tithing, keep budgeting, keep investing, keep serving, the math of faithfulness will work in your favor. Now let's talk to some of you watching who are pastors and teachers. In ministry, math works differently, but it still matters. Jesus started with 12 disciples, not 1,200, 12. He invested deeply in a small group, and those 12 reached the world. That's exponential math. You don't need to grow your church by 1,000 people. You need to disciple a few who will each reach a few, who will each reach a few. That's how kingdom math beats worldly math. Paul told Timothy, and the things you have heard me say, entrust to reliable people who will also be qualified to teach others. 2 Timothy 2:2. That's 4 generations of multiplication in one verse. The things you heard of me, tell to others who will tell to the 4th generation, right? So don't despise small beginnings. Don't measure success by Instagram followers or the size of your building. Measure it by multiplication, by the math of legacy. Parents, let's bring this home to your family. Your kids are learning math from you, whether you realize it or not. When they see you tithe first, budget wisely, save consistently, and give generously, you're teaching them kingdom arithmetic. Deuteronomy 6 says to teach God's commands when you sit at home and when you walk along the road. That means discipleship happens at the dinner table, even when you're talking about money. One of the best lessons you can give your kids is this: never fight against math, because math fights back. If they understand compound interest early, they'll respect debt. If they understand probabilities, they'll avoid gambling. If they understand stewardship, they'll pursue God's favor the right way through obedience, not shortcuts. So does faith override math? Yeah, sometimes yes, but only when God directly intervenes. When Jesus fed the 5,000, the math didn't add up. 5 loaves, 2 fish, no way that's going to happen. But notice, the miracle happened after they offered what they had. Faith starts where math stops, not where wisdom ends. You still count the loaves, you still organize the people, you still gather the leftovers, because faith honors God, but math honors how God designed the world. So here's the question I want you to wrestle with. Where are you fighting against math right now? Maybe it's a business idea that doesn't work financially. Maybe it's a ministry that's burning out volunteers faster than it's making disciples. Maybe it's your personal budget and you're praying for a miracle while ignoring your spreadsheet. Faith doesn't mean ignoring reality. Faith means aligning your obedience with God's design, spiritual and mathematical. So as you lead your family, your business, your classroom, your church, ask yourself, is the math on my side, or am I hoping for a miracle to fix my disobedience? God is a God of order, not a God of chaos. He blesses those who work diligently, who plan wisely, and who sow consistently. Never fight against the math. Because when you fight against math, you're fighting ultimately against the wisdom of God. Friend, the numbers don't lie, and neither does God. When your faith and your math walk hand in hand, you'll find that stewardship becomes worship. And over time, faithful math inevitably leads to divine multiplication. I hope this video was helpful. If so, consider leaving a thumbs up or subscribing to the channel. Consider sharing it with a friend that you think might find it useful. And thanks so much for your time. I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful day.